February 10th. Here we are at the Larkspur Community Center. It's the Old Farm District Neighborhood Association Board. Nothing too crazy this week. We are doing a test of the new AV setup. Finally using the Larkspur Center's equipment. So if anybody's online, looks like there's only one person at this point or two. If you can't hear us or see us, please comment so that we can address this. This is a dry run for us. We've got two major topics on the agenda tonight, but before we get into those, Karen is back with us after taking a vacation. And Karen, what sort of land use information do you have for us?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know how many people remember a couple of years ago, the legislature passed House Bill 2001, which in essence was a middle housing initiative requiring duplexes, triplexes, quads, and cottages on any lot that was in essence single family zone areas. And a lot of the controversy considered whether or not the increased density was going to affect neighborhoods and whether or not their requirements would really encourage the building of more middle income housing. Portland had a similar program. They call it the Residential Infill Program. And Portland just released a progress report concerning the efforts that they've been making since 2018. They've passed two different codes, the same sort of thing, requiring middle housing, which is to say smaller houses of higher density. And the Portland report is interesting. I read it and did a general summary. I can send it to anybody who's really interested. But in essence, in the last 2 years, Portland has added 1,400 ADUs and middle housing units to the area inside the city limit. That the middle housing units are typically 2-bedroom, about 700 to 900 square feet. In other words, they're the size of the old starter homes people used to be able to afford. And about, let's see, yeah, they're selling on an average price of $250,000 less than your single-family detached home. So from Portland's viewpoint, your code has really encouraged more middle housing that people can afford to buy to starter homes. There's a price though, and that is 74% of the units are built without any off-street parking at all. And that, of course, means you can have a lot more congestion in the streets. and then the middle housing units that I'm seeing, like one of my friends has an 80-car sequester going next to their house. They've got at least parking for one car. I went to call the city and see whether or not they're also looking at that kind of data because they're interested to see how well the benefit has worked in terms of encouraging more middle income housing. So I read the report and I am going to be able to the city to see whether we really are building more affordable housing by requiring or allowing duplexes and triplexes.
So they should have that.
But I remember correctly that Portland was one of the things that took money to do a study around before HB 2001, was that right? Does this update in any way track or try to track how their progress looks compared to projections they had back in the day?
No, it doesn't. It simply says that after it has time periods. The first code was, I think, passed in 2020, and the second code, which enabled a lot more funding for insurance, was passed in 2022. And it's simply a compilation of the kind of units that are built, and now you've got a whole lot more than living income going than single family. The majority are now actually smaller units than the open city, and they're pleased about that.
So if we try to extrapolate that to Ben did not do any work on objective improvement in the middle housing.
They basically passed code and hopefully works.
And so how would we even know if it's working? And how would we know that it's affecting or has been affecting that growth outside of what was going to happen?
Well, what she'll do or what I expect from Walter, is to take a look at the last 4 years. At the start of that time, you look at how many single-family detached houses have been built. And then at 4 years later, you look at the percentage of smaller units that are being built as opposed to the single-family detached, and see whether or not the percentage has changed. In Portland, the percentage of smaller units has gone up significantly.
I mean, don't you think there's a lot of things that impact them, sort of like percentage of infill available and market conditions and other things that could have a dramatic impact on those numbers without having anything to do with HB 2001?
And the report simply looks at 5,000, say 2018, now, price now, price as opposed to back then. So, and all the city tomorrow and see whether they have comparable data or some studies. Because that was going to be a question, and then we go absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna pause for a second there. Have we figured out how to turn the heat off?
I don't know, but I don't know if it's that that's causing a problem or not, but I'm having trouble hearing.
Yeah. Give us a sec, Cheryl. We'll try to get the sound dialed in.
Power off.
All right, can you guys hear us better now?
Cheryl, give us a thumbs up or down if you can hear us better or worse.
I can hear you a lot better.
Okay, Jim, that works.
Great, thanks for fixing it.
Okay. So, oh.
Well, I mean, that is, I can send you a copy of the report that would like to look at it. It has lots of charts, graphs, lots of data. And
So the
that's,
city has this for Bend. I know this because it was part of their goal setting session. They've been tracking the new housing starts and builds and density. And one of the metrics, I can't remember it, so I don't want to quote it, but apartment rental prices have stabilized and basically equalized to the down level. The rents had been going up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and that stopped. Which means the apartment supply, I mean, economically, that would be the way.
Yeah, the demand at a certain level pretty much dictates what they can.
but it also, reading this report, it looks like Portland has a couple of really strong programs to subsidize middle income housing. One is that they waive system development charges for 10 years. The other is, affirmative cash to help people. And I'm not sure if Bend really has comparable programs.
We do, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the Caldera project, that, is an exception to the UGB, part of it was they had to have a certain percentage of affordable housing.
Yeah, but I'm talking about your typical infill, like the lot across the alley from my friend. They're gonna put an 8-unit cottage in there. I think they're gonna market rate.
So if a builder wants to build and get STCs lowered, they can, but they have to make it a percentage of affordable housing.
And these folks, I think they're all gonna be market rate, all 8 units.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still a supply and demand, and if the developer wants to go through and fill out everything and do things at a cheaper rate, and they can make it pencil, they can. I believe there was a big story about the project along Highway 97 that was supposed to be a certain number of affordable apartments, and basically, before they're anywhere near finished, the developer said, we can't do it. And is gonna pay more in fees to basically have everything market rate.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll find out, because I know they're keeping the data, but are they gonna compile it at some point? And
yeah, I'm positive city council likes to brag about those numbers.
Okay, we'll find out.
Anything else? Any other developments coming on?
No, not in our area.
Do you have any update from me on we were talking about the developments along Magnolia?
No, I've not received any updates at all from the city.
Where is that to your understanding right now?
Well, I think there are 3 different complexes that have been approved to go in, but I don't know if any building is started. So I've not heard anything about that area in a long time.
Well,
Not received any notices.
okay, well, dirt is being moved, but I think it's in preparation of, that's Hayden out there, isn't it? On the
Aimed at the end of it.
end of it. I think that's for the Hayden project, I'm guessing. But they have trenched for utilities. They've knocked down trees and things to clear pathways, both north and south and east and west.
Is that on Magnolia?
Yeah, and I haven't walked out to the middle of that lot, but it looks like they're doing this similar north-south corridor in the middle of that field. So perhaps where the extension of Ferguson Court might go, but I haven't been out to check that, but they're definitely moving dirt,
Okay.
but I don't know for which project.
They're moving dirt, like where, sorry, I'm just sharing on the screen now.
On the, just on the east side of of the Magnolia Road. It's trenched basically from the house there on the corner, right where your cursor is, and there all the way down to the Hayden property, which is pretty much down
Right
the bottom
there.
of the screen. No, it goes.
At the bottom of the screen, so past first
No,
down.
yeah, it keeps going all the way down to the bottom of your screen there. And then is that interesting, where that north-south looks like a road there?
Yeah.
That's where I think they're also trenching north-south.
So that was the main road for that first development off of Ferguson.
And I think they're still working there. So I don't know. Like I said, I haven't walked out there to see exactly what the work is. But
Yeah, so that was their original plan that they submitted. They talked with us 4 years ago.
Right, but there was talk about the sewer going there too, but I don't.
No, it's gonna be the main infrastructure.
Right, so I don't know whether or not, if that's on the Magnolia side of the land, they are definitely trenching, and it's definitely infrastructure because it's going right to the various utility boxes and things like that, so.
And it's down to like where my cursor is now. It's about
Below
down
that,
here.
below that,
Below that.
all the way at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to walk out there to see how far it goes, but I think it goes at least to where the east-west road that's gonna go all the way from 15th to 27th is.
Okay.
So, stuff happening, so keep an eye on it.
Well, if that's it for land use, Karen. Alrighty, so this is just a shout out for the recording. We are still trying to put together, or we have to put together a survey at the end of the year. If anybody has any ideas that they'd like us to poll everybody in the district, send them to us by way of email
You remember fiscal year,
for the fiscal year, which ends June 30th.
which means we need to execute by
Yes,
Probably by April at the latest.
pretty soon. Yeah,
but we can put it together. I mean, typically it never takes us more than 2 weeks to implement, and then 2 weeks for the data to come in. So
so it's just an opportunity for people to speak up with ideas if they wish to.
yes,
Like ideas like how to improve our like old farm district and the area around this.
Any question they'd like to
yeah.
pose?
I mean,
We've talked about having a limited number of questions to try to maximize open rates and response rates, but that's up to us.
and historically, people ask, like, what bugs you? So for 15 years across the town, it was always speeders in neighborhoods. That was like the prime thing everywhere.
I like the signs that said that only you can prevent speed bumps.
Yeah.
Okay, then on that note, let's just go to the 2 agenda items. We'll go through the first one and then we'll finish up with the planning for the general meeting. So the first item it's regarding ADA sidewalk and trail access in the district. We've got a picture of one thing that we can show everybody.
Yeah, let me show the screen once again. Wrong
Oh,
picture.
Hang on.
Actually, we'll need to
folks.
get to this as well, but because the picture is
Just keep going.
Okay, so essentially, What, well, people have noticed, and we're gonna have a link in our news, and the website as well, to a city committee regarding the water plan moving forward, a water master plan. As the city's gone through and retrofitted old roads and added these ADA ramps, which everybody's familiar with, there seems to be a drainage problem around town where water pools at the bottom of the ramp. Therefore, and if there's a freeze cycle, then it becomes a frozen sheet of ice, so that it becomes dangerous for people to cross. And if it's an ADA user, you may have someone come by that's visually impaired. They'll see the or feel the bumps in the yellow section, and then boom, straight into the ice. And the same problem also means these are accumulating cinder as well as leaves at other times of the year. The city is aware of this around town, but they don't really have a good understanding of our section of town, the southeast side of town. Like I said, we're gonna have a link to the city's meeting today regarding the master plan from the water committee. What we're looking for is people to, if you see this in your neighborhood, even if you've got an HOA, let's get this identified so that all the paths, as we've spent all this money to make them safer for everybody, are actually functional and not becoming worse hazards.
Yeah, I would just add that the picture you're looking at is a relatively newly installed ramp on Ferguson. And everyone knows that Ferguson is essentially a brand new road due to the installation of the sewer line. So in watching this develop, the ramps were not built in coordination with the pavement. And there was no drainage issue on site there until the ramp was installed. And so this is happening frequently, maybe not always as extreme as this, but to James's point, yeah, a visually impaired person certainly have a problem, but a fully able-bodied person risks very bad fall, because sometimes it's water, sometimes it's ice. This past week, it was water that froze into ice and then was covered with a nice coating of snow. So you'd never even know it was there. And this is a heavily traveled sidewalk by everyone from kids to senior citizens, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen. And I think the city is paying attention, but to James's point.
What should they have done?
What should who have
What
done?
should they have done?
The road was not built in conjunction with the ramp. The drainage should be continuing to the bottom of that picture. You'll notice there is a lake immediately at the bottom of the ramp, and then you can see as it drains or begins to drain off of there, it created a big field of sheet ice. So that's, I mean, that's about as bad as it can get, because it's cars, bikes, pedestrians, wheeled, cyclists, you don't name it. That's not navigable. And in this picture, you'll see that the only real safe place to go would actually be off the curb into the street.
Yeah.
The rest of it's all ice or private property and ice. And so you're actually asking people to detour around the ADA ramps, which sort of defies logic and puts them closer to the speeding traffic, which also probably was not one of the objectives when they did this. So it is evident in many locations, and as James alluded to, the city is aware, and I think they actually are very appreciative of any information about where these types of problems are popping up. In my own travels about our district, I see this in frequent locations. How quickly they drain, I can't say because I don't stay there. I know this one takes a long time to drain. That's why you can see how large it is, and it had time to freeze because it wasn't going anywhere.
The one at the canal trail, where the canal trail crosses 15th, has the same problem.
Really bad there, yeah. And the other thing that is worth noting, that the thing that destroys streets, curbs, and barriers is the freeze thaw. So if you put a lake on there, let it freeze and then melt and freeze, it's gonna destroy everything that we just built there. So, it's, an issue, no matter how you look at it. And we're in the thick of it and, in conversations with the city, and they're, very much paying attention. So we'd love to hear, or, either a location, or if you have pictures.
Both
share
would be
it.
great.
That would be great.
Yes, so any sort of crossing, we're not looking at sidewalks. We know people don't plow their sidewalks. That is not what this request is out to the people. This is literally, we're looking for design flaws at the ADA ramps, where they enter the streets. It's quite evident when you see it or you know it. There should never be a big puddle of water sitting at the bottom of the ramp.
If you have a photo, please just send it to, I guess, board@oldfarumbend.com would be a great first step. Or go to the website, oldfarumbend.com, and you might be able to submit it there as well. I'm not sure. You can do pictures though.
And like I said, there is we'll put a link on our website to the city actually has a community committee, and they're working on a master plan for water remediation or whatever in town. All new information to me. It's a little over an hour long. Highly recommend people watch it. But it's just one more thing that the city is doing that people should be aware of, and it's a good thing. And that means they're paying attention and they know that there's issues. But so I think that's it for that topic. Unless you have anything else, Brian?
I think that's it for now.
That's the case. Let's go into this will just be some board discussion. The general meeting is going to be April 24th. We have the large room secured here at Larkspur Center from 4 to 8. We normally have the meetings go from 5:30 to 7:30. And that gives us 30 minutes to clean up at the end. At this point, we've decided on 2 topics. One of them, Brian, I was going to ask if you could set up because of your continued relationship with the landfill folk, and that has to do with the city's new recycling program.
Sure, I can try and set it up. I really don't have a wealth of information. All I know is that the city is expanding its recycling efforts.
The state of Oregon.
Okay, well, it's happening here. I mean, recycling is more advanced. Recycling is evident in a lot of areas, and we've been dragging behind. And I know you've gotten more. I have not received personally the information from anybody detailing exactly how that looks, but I know it is some kind of opt-in program that you can pay a little bit more and have greater.
Yeah.
You can reduce more of your waste.
I'm assuming most people are on Cascade Disposal in the old farm. And essentially there's an opt-in program, and then it means that a lot more things become recyclable, but you have to set it up yourself and do some of the sorting at your house. But it actually is a statewide initiative. So that's why we'd love Cascade Disposal, 1 rep from them, and then 1 rep from landfill to come be the little, to answer.
Yeah, and they might be able, I would think, as part of that same discussion, to give us an update on the what's going on around negotiations for a new landfill location. As my understanding is very little progress has been made there, and that the landfill itself is up a really, hard deadline, because when they get to a point where they have reached a certain height, they cannot put one more thing in that landfill. So we're running into it, and so from
What's the date on that?
it's whatever date they reach that height. And I think in their mind, they've been projecting it 2028.
So
So,
27, but okay.
well, you keep dumping stuff in landfill and it will be 27.
It's how much they can compact it down.
Right. And so, theoretically, they got 3 years and that's it. And that is nothing in the development of a new site and all that has to go into it. And it also, for our area, the question is what's going to become of the current site? Big question.
So
Because,
should we give them 20 minutes for this topic?
well, are we going to, the other topic,
The other topic is gonna be contentious.
Yeah, but I think that if you're gonna allow for Q&A and you have at least 3 different things I can think of around the solid waste department, that I would give it more than 20 minutes.
Okay, so we'll schedule it for 30 max.
Well, if you're gonna add Q&A into it,
Well, I mean, yeah, start to finish, including Q&A.
I think that would be fair, yeah.
Okay. Then of course, we do have some elections that we're gonna have to address, as always. They usually take less than 5 minutes.
I think we got it down to about 90 seconds.
Yeah, 90 seconds last time. I think there's two board openings. I think I'm one and somebody else is one, or is it we'll figure that out. It's either the majority or the minority of when we did the new rules. And then other than that, we've decided to only do 2 topics, and the other topic is going to be I guess the urban wildfire interface realities and how that affects Bend. I know the city council it's part of their goal setting session that they just did for the next 2 years. Now that we have the room confirmed, I can reach out to the city staff. These are my thoughts, chime in. We have like 4 people as a forum, a panel of people, at the front of the room. We get 1 or 2 of them to do presentations. And then depending, we can work with them, either do the Q&A at the end of their presentations, or let one person do a presentation and then a Q&A into somebody else. The people that I've already got a soft yes from one of the fire inspectors for the city of Bend. She's gonna basically come and tell everybody what to do for existing properties. Then 1 or 2 people I think we should get is actually from the building code and the building planning department. And that is, what are the current standards for construction and how are they going to change? Because the state map says they must change. The current standards do not meet what the state is requiring for the large interface area that a good section of the old farm is. And then, so that's at least 3 people right there. And then I figure the city may have like somebody else come in, or if we can, this is where I don't know what to do, if we could get a representative from the insurance industry. But I have no idea how to do that.
I think you can reach out on that. I'm not optimistic that, they're for profit. And so I don't think they're going to want to put themselves in that mixture. But one thought I had is and I wouldn't do 2 from planning. I think if you're going to have 4 people, I'd have 1 from planning and then look for other aspects. Like, what about Land Watch? I mean, they had a lot to do with the west side of Bend and the
And how to do an interface properly.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what we're not saying here right now, but I think is helpful is that, the whole southern border of the old farm is subject to and potentially at risk directly from wildfire. And now, the city is going to build a new high density housing development even closer to the forest. And as we just saw in Southern California, and we've seen in Paradise and in other places, in fact, in Bend, in past decades, you get a fire like that started. We're not just talking about new things, we're talking about the neighborhoods that exist now. And so I think everyone should be concerned with what we've seen with weather and the realities around that and our continued expansion outward in the direction of the forest.
So I was assuming that also at least 1 politician, so a city councilor.
Absolutely.
And so my take on it when I was talking with the fire inspector was, the fire inspector can tell you the reality of fire safety and answer those questions. But they cannot at all say anything about how to fire harden, like what exists, or basically what building code is and how to make these new developments. And they also won't, I haven't figured out who to ask about the emergency evacuation routes. There seems to be a big, every time I've talked to people, everybody points to somebody, well, that's not my job. I haven't figured out whose job it is to tell everybody what these fire emergency routes are. I know when I lived on the East Coast, when you got closer to the ocean, there was hurricane evacuation routes that were just extremely prevalent. And as you are on certain roads, there was big signs like, go this way if you need to get away from an emergency. I think it might be a good idea to start seeing that in Bend. There's a wildfire. This is a wildfire, as far as I know, we don't have anything that's dedicated like that. I may be wrong.
With respect to evacuation route, nothing I can think of.
I've never seen anything, and the
Wildfire
development
evacuation route.
and the developments that's coming, from Country Club down to, all the way to 27th is going to be adding to the infill, the congestion, and virtually all of it, is directly connected to one 2-lane road, not road.
But yeah.
And so if we take history that we can all see in living color, your TV, chaos will undoubtedly ensue if southern and eastern Bend is threatened by a wildfire and people are all trying to get out via the same route.
So what we had discussed last meeting is about an hour for this topic. So if we get 1 or 2 presentations, because the fire department's gonna have an extremely different presentation than the city planning department.
Planning, politicians.
Politicians not gonna have a presentation, they'll be there for questions and fluff, I'm assuming.
Well, they should be there for questions, and they're the ones they're gonna be.
Right, but I can't imagine a politician putting together a 5-minute hi. I mean, we can
Well,
see that.
I'm not convinced that presentation is the right approach.
Okay.
I think that, it could be, I'm not saying no to it, I'm just saying, an entity might come to the table with a presentation like, this is what we see, this is what we do type of thing. But I think all of the available presentation time that the city of Bend might have would easily get consumed by questions. So I'm thinking that maybe we need to think more about how we conduct the meeting, and maybe individual presentations might be some of it, and some of it might be more open-ended. And the thought, with Land Watch is that they're active. They've been around a long time. They've already done this on the other side of town. They generated very tangible results there that shaped the west side of our community. And as far as I can tell, they've had nothing to say or directly involved with from the city about the southern part of this community, which I think is.
Well, they submitted comments on it, and as is the comments were not there, up there. Actually, the comment was to wait. What's the hurry in this? Because the new UGB is coming up so quickly. No, but they submitted a couple of pages.
Yeah, they said to pause.
Yeah, they want to pause.
Well, they might be willing to
Okay,
send.
so that's essentially 4 people. If I can, I'll talk with Corey over at Central Oregon Land Watch.
And we can
that
still
would be
see if
a
there's
city
any-
person and then
and maybe there's an emergency, and I don't know if there is, because right now, like you said, it sounds pretty fragmented. But maybe that's something we could think about, is how would the emergency side of such a
I'm
plan.
hoping the fire department can. I'll ask.
Me too. I would like to see somebody from the fire department here as well.
Well, I mean, so the fire inspector, like, basically, that's her job is our side of our section of town and beyond the city of Bend itself, even past the city limits. And basically goes out and one of the things that is very different is this new wildfire interface map at the state. You can now be fined if you are not in compliance. And that was never a thing before. So if you've got a bunch of ponderosas on your property and you're not raking up ponderosa needles and pine cones, that is now going to be eligible for fine from the city.
Okay.
I think an insurance agent would be interesting, because I get the impression that you've got a kind of an entirely separate world that's kind of secret in terms of with the setting insurance rates on a house. What materials do they look at? What do they look at in setting rates? James was saying that his his insurance rates were going through the roof. What do they consider? And what could a person do to get the rates down a bit? If they want to talk about that.
Does anyone know an insurance broker in town? That way they're not covering, they're not representing a single entity. They could do more generalizations. I mean, are there property brokers?
Are there any that are trying to sell fire insurance at this point?
All insurance for sale. The question is how much they sell.
I mean, I'd like to have people that can talk about, one, what is our risk? And I think that's probably fire inspector, as well as probably somebody from the fire department. What we can do to kind of mitigate that risk. Maybe that's somebody from the insurance world, maybe it's somebody from, maybe it's that inspector, maybe it's the fire department, and what's the plan for if wildfire does basically hit our area, literally hitting the city of Bend, and that's where the fire department, somebody from there.
Well, the other piece, I mean, I think you can talk about fire a lot once it's crossed into the city. At least in my mind, a fire that starts in the city of Bend probably isn't as big of a concern as the one that sweeps down on Bend from the forest. And so, from what I've seen and heard, and to James' point about people pointing their finger, that's the other guy's job. City fire people are not expected to be experts in wildland fire suppression or planning. And so maybe Forest Service, if they have someone who worked in that fire area, might be another possibility, because in theory, if it was coming out of the monument, which
This is
given
where it will come
which is
from.
where it's going to come from, because it's going to come from the west and the south if it comes. Maybe they've thought about that. Maybe they have people who are looking at that. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's another option for a meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to understand if we've just gotten lucky, because I've heard stories of where they just were able to divert planes to snuff out wildfires just west of us. Were we just lucky and fortunate, or there's just an extreme amount of concern, and so they've just taken care of it.
So I'll put my feelers out to see if there might be another expert that wants to come and speak. From the news today, it sounds like all new positions are put on a pause. So it'll be really interesting. The National Forest Service does.
New position,
Apparently all the firefighters were put on holds,
federal.
statewide, or federal. So since we're
Federal
next to the Deschutes
firefighters
National
are
Forest,
no longer being paid, they're not going to
essentially.
work.
I thought
I'm
that,
not talking politics, dude, this is all, it's been on every single channel.
I thought
for the last
I
24
thought the
hours.
judge shot that down.
Judge did, but it doesn't mean that they started it up again. So I'll put out feelers to see if there's somebody from either the Forest Service or the Forest Firefighter Brigade or whatever. I don't know. There's got to be somebody from, because we're so close to the National Forest, we should probably I'll try to see if I can get a representative from them, and they would be able to answer questions like what the past has been. I sent the board some information. We need to put it on our website and our social media. The return of conflagration in our urban fires. I highly recommend, it's about 40 pages. I highly recommend everybody look at it. It's basically the concept of what a wildfire is, what a forest fire, and what an urban fire are. They have changed the descriptions, definitions, and meanings because they no longer apply.
Okay, conflagration is just a large, devastating fire, right?
Essentially. But if you have a fire that say starts in the national forest and they're in the process of starting a thinning project and moving all of the homeless people out off of China Hat starting extremely soon.
May, I think.
Yeah. So let's say a fire starts there, or it starts closer to Pine Mountain, like last year, there was a fire there and it stopped. When it comes into the urban area, the urban concept is what spreads out there and how fast it spreads. And as soon as it gets to a certain level of density, then it becomes an entire different firefighting everything. And I know the city's talked about, they're in the process of talking about this. And I think we're gonna be one of the first conversations for the city and to address all this. So, but at this point, there's a lot of questions and I don't know if anybody really has the answers, but hopefully after everybody walks out of this, we're either gonna want some policy changes or we're gonna feel better about the way things are going.
Well, I think the recent, tragedies in Southern California, not to mention, the complete devastation of Paradise, which is closer to home and more similar to our community just a few years back. If you're not worried, particularly in light of the fact that it doesn't sound like there's any coordinated system or any good answers, then we should be worried. And I think this is an important conversation because, we are at risk. No way to say we're not. And I think we should seek to have plans developed if they don't exist, because it's probably just a matter of time.
And for this meeting, I was thinking that we won't send postcards beyond our neighborhood, but I think we should do more of a social media, digital advertising presence than we have in the past. Because I think people in the entire southeast section of town should be invited to this meeting if they can come.
If this is the kind of thing where we could apply for more grant funds from the city for a broader advertising.
Okay.
Do we know what?
Well, technically, we have to have a bank account, which we don't have, unless it goes into one of our personal names. And for that, we can check with Robbie. He did it over on the other side of town.
So do we just need to formally form a business, a nonprofit corporation or whatever? Get a bank account?
There's sort of a big question of, is that what the city really wants all the neighborhoods to do? Because some of them already are, some of them are already a 501c3.
But at this point, it's more about what's effective, and we already know that it works. It has worked for the other districts.
I'd much rather apply for the grant, say we have $5,000, and then the city can keep all the money themselves and just pay our vendors that we hire. That would be the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they want to do it that way or not.
Be easier on us, so we don't have to do bookkeeping.
Well, nobody should front anything. So the question is, do we just get the money up front and then pay it out and then deal with the fact that we have remaining budget left over? Or do we? I can talk with city staff. I'll either talk with Renee or Michaela about
If
it.
there's some hitch in the giddy up from the city side, the legal side, which I think there is, I personally don't have a problem with, going and setting up a bank account somewhere for the old farm district where they can deposit the money. And I don't see us doing so much business with so many vendors is be a difficult accounting problem, which I'm happy to handle if it comes to that. But I agree with you that if we had a limit in the city, we're just going to pay it out. But the city has their issues with preferred vendors. We want to be able to work with people that we think are going to be most effective in accomplishing our goals.
We can always get reimbursed like we have in the past for a lot of our stuff, which is we front the cost and then get reimbursed.
I think that's a non-starter. I think we need to be past the days of fronting the city.
I don't disagree. I'll have a conversation with staff. So standard general meeting, we'll have all the swag that we try to give away. Do we want to invite the last couple of meetings, we've had 2 or 3 other stations set up, or maybe we could have the fire department set up a station so that people talk for 30 minutes before the presentation.
I think having nonprofits or other community organizations is always a good idea.
Okay.
Because we know people, are going to show up early. It gives them something to do, and I think it's a great opportunity for those organizations to interact with our membership, and our membership more reasons to come.
So, okay, the next 2 or 3 weeks, let's just reach out, figure out who we want to reach out to. I say we've limited it about 3 or 4. That's sort of is the back of the room, a couple of tables set up.
We had a lot in the last, but it depends upon if the people. Last year we had several speakers, and all of them I think had a table.
Okay,
And if that isn't the case here, or maybe it would be, I don't know.
okay.
Well,
Well,
if you had the Forest Service, they might want to come with maps and things like that. And if you had somebody who was going to talk about how to harden, fire harden a home, an existing home, they might have material. So I think we need to leave that open.
the fire marshal or the fire inspector definitely has all that stuff. So I'll see what she
I
wants.
expect that to be the hot topic, and maybe this is our survey topic as well. What do you want to learn about wildfires? How concerned are you about wildfires or fires hitting your home?
Urban
Around
fires.
Bend, urban fires.
And
Making their
then,
way into Bend.
I'm always a fan, but, do the food the same way we've done the last few meetings. It seems to be pretty easy. Just those Costco trays or whatever.
Easy on him, isn't it? It's easy on him.
We can get it delivered. We don't have to have anybody else pick it up.
And I started discussions with Larkspur Center on Paul specifically on making sure the microphones are working and everything. Tying them in may still be difficult. But I'll see what I can envision.
If we are progressing on this, do we want to talk to any of the adjacent districts about it?
Jim, you're online still, right?
Affirmative, I'm still here.
Ask your question, Brian.
Well, if we're focusing a great deal on things that are highly centric to southern and southeastern area of Bend, and so I'm just asking if we are talking about that conflagration and the urban fire type scenarios that, if you're in Woodside Ranch or, any of that new stuff on Murphy all the way down to us, potentially it got crazy, it could even go into Larkspur. So it would be headed east because that's where the winds are most likely to blow it. So do we want to think about joining arms with our adjacent districts? And might that provide some additional incentive when it comes to talking to the city? If we were.
Jim, have you done your general meeting yet?
No, we haven't. And as I mentioned to you at the NARP meeting, I guess a couple of weeks ago, we've basically got 1.5 directors. The other one, she's in Tahiti now, and she's going to be spending 6 months away every year. So coordination has been very difficult. And I know we've got to do an annual meeting, but we've not done any planning for it yet. But I suggested to her that maybe we ought to join you guys in your annual meeting, but I haven't gotten a good answer from her on that one yet.
Jim, if you can find out what she's thinking and get back to me in the next few days, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Do we want to include Larkspur as well?
I'll reach out to Larkspur and see what they want to do. I talked to them a few months ago, and they were planning on having their general meeting based around the baseball season. And
Well, I'm not necessarily suggesting that our meeting become their meeting, but I think it makes sense for Jim in the Southeast if that works for them. But I was just thinking more about spreading the word, invitations, direct involvement, helping out. They can do, if they're going to join us, they can do parts that,
yeah,
we're stronger.
We can reach out in the next week or two to Larkspur. We've got Jim online, so once we get to hear from them, it wouldn't be, if anything, when it comes to postcard printing and everything like that, it would be very easy to combine Southeast and us, and then just have Larkspur be part of all the digital and social media advertising.
What if if we did that and we formalized it, then we could get a pretty accurate estimate on what it would cost to do a mailing to all 3 districts for this event, and then go to the city for a grant for those specific funds for that event. Because it would be a pretty, if you had all 3 districts, you're going to have
that would be a possibility. If you got time in the next few days to ask Michaela or Renee if they want to do that, I would appreciate that, Brian. Basically, see if they want us to apply for a grant, or should we reach out to Larkspur first?
No, I think we have to reach out to we need to have the buy-in from any district that wanted to join the effort first. And then we could propose to Michaela and the city that we would like to additional funding to support a mailing to this for this reason.
Well, we've got 2.5 months, so it takes us 6 weeks before the meeting. We need to have the signs and everything ordered. So that's a month
Well,
away.
we need to move those up because we're always doing that at the last second and it's like pulling some papers.
Like I said, so 6 weeks before the meeting, the signs need to be dropped off, to be printed and everything, and then it takes 2 or 3 weeks of their new time schedule, or even a month. And
Yeah,
that'll
well,
give us-
you need the information and you got to design them and all that stuff before. So, I mean, you got to back up from that even. So that's why I think that an answer from Southeast Larkspur, it
Okay.
helps inform our next steps and the timeline.
Okay, so Jim, get back to us when you can, and then I'll reach out to Larkspur in the next couple of days, and we'll go from there, I guess, on that answer or on that question.
Yeah, that works.
Any
will
other
do.
thoughts? We got 5 minutes. Any other thoughts on the general meeting or even at this gathering right now?
Okay, it's Jim. You talked about trying to get somebody from the insurance industry to talk about, I guess, fire insurance. Are you still considering that?
If you know anybody that might be interested, sure.
Yeah,
think-
I've had a little problem there because I've reached out to several insurance agents, and apparently what at least State Farm is telling me is that their rate setting is kind of confidential and it's done at the head office, and the agents around don't know nothing about it.
Yeah, an agent in town is not going to be any help at all.
Nope. And
They're in too much of a conflict. And to your point, you just said it perfectly. You know, they're kept in the dark for a reason. They
Yep.
don't know, they can't share it.
yeah, because what I'd like to do is find out what Caldera Ranch is going to do to insurance rates around here. So I started making some inquiries, but I've not had much success at all.
Hmm.
Might be too early for that, but the only other thing I could think is there somebody at the state level who might have interface with the insurance industry at a strata where that they could pull somebody in, if not to have specifics, but also talk about what things are part of the equation.
I can reach out to Anthony Rodman. He's our new state rep,
There you go.
and
There
see
you
what
go.
his thoughts are.
Yeah. All I can say is no.
All I can say is no, or give me a number of somebody to call. Yeah, I'm sure there's a state insurance something or other.
Yeah.
Well, it's the state insurance board. Yeah.
And they certainly know the insurance people, so they would probably be able to say yes or no to the idea of whether they would, I mean, they could probably tell us pretty quickly. It's like, yeah, they're never gonna do that, or we might, know something.
That's fine. I mean, I can make that call this week, so.
That'd be a good angle.
Anything else that I'm missing, at this point?
No, that's everything that was on our agenda.
Okay, because we've got pretty much, I mean, we've done enough of these now that we know what we need to do and how to do them. And we've answered most of the preliminary questions at this point.
Yep, feel good about it.
That's the case, Jim, or anybody else, Cheryl, do you want to say anything? Otherwise, we'll. Okay, so Jim, if you don't have anything else, we're gonna bring this meeting to an end.
Oh, I just want to congratulate Karen on her recovery.
Oh,
It's
thank
nice-
you.
It's good to see you again, even though I'm 500 miles away.
How much snow did they got down there?
They're expecting a big blizzard here in 2 days, starting Thursday.
Huh.
So they're expecting a couple feet of snow and 100-mile-an-hour winds on the ridges. So we probably won't be skiing that day.
Probably
But
not.
today's good. Tomorrow and Wednesday's going to start deteriorating. It's a question of just what the ski area is going to be doing that day. But yeah,
Tahoe
big
loves to
big
get those
storm coming.
12-foot dumps.
What's that?
Tahoe loves when they get their 10 to 12-foot snowfalls, so.
Yeah,
well,
but surprisingly, they had about 5 feet of snow this last week, but we were out there skiing. It must have been all tramped down already because it was solid. You know, the powder hounds are out there early.
Oh, Jim, where are you? What resort?
Well, it's called Palisades. It used to be Squaw Valley and Alpine
Oh, yeah,
Meadows,
sure. Yeah.
right on Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, got
Yeah,
it.
we're staying in Tahoe City right now.
All right, let's bring this meeting to an end.